Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's exactly 5 minutes past 6 from the cart shed. It's been a very good day for fishing today. It's been raining. We had a few showers, which they're welcome. One or two members fished the beats, and it was a lot more lively today compared to the last few days. So I'd like to introduce you to Bill Latham. Bill has been a member of the committee for a number of years, and he is a local boy. Bill, did you want to say a few words about yourself?
Well, sort of very local, really. Sort of 72 years ago, at the end of May, I was brought home from Salisbury Hospital in a cradle and moved into One Riverside Avenue in Amesbury, which is just by the recreation ground on our West Amesbury beat. So I'm pretty local to that water and have fished it officially and unofficially for many years. So, like Andreas said, I started fishing ham hatches when I was about 4 years old, and have photographs to prove it. But I really started fishing that water when the club took it on full time, which was in 1972.
72, I think.
Yeah, 72. And fished it pretty much every evening throughout the season for a couple of years, and have fished it every year since. So that water is like a home water to me, and I enjoy it very much. But I haven't enjoyed it quite so much over the last couple of weeks with these temperatures up around 32 degrees or so. And maybe you can see by the colour of my skin, I've been out on the riverbank quite a bit during that time.
You don't have any Greek heritage.
No, but it has been questioned on one or two occasions, my ethnicity. But it's been in joyous weather. It's been lovely weather, but it hasn't really been the weather for being out on the water fishing all the time. So I hope you've all enjoyed the water, which is low and clear at the moment.
And Bill, I understand. I mean, obviously, you're a professional guide.
I am. I've been guiding for over 26 years now. 26 years.
Okay. And various rivers, I guess.
Pretty much all the chalk streams in the south of England, although I did a stint for 3 seasons in Iceland, guiding for salmon on a river called the Latham, which was mainly grills, which was really very interesting. I'm not a salmon fisherman by any stretch of the imagination, but we used very similar tactics to what we use on the chalk streams. So it was very stealthy fishing, creeping around, single-handed rods, creeping around, presenting flies in a fairly delicate manner. No double-handed stuff, no Skagit lines. So that was all good fun.
So the idea is, because Bill has been fishing, I suppose, roughly 60 years. And
yeah, fly fishing 60 years, and I've never really done anything else. I mean, I'd say I had those few years a bit of salmon fishing on the season up there, but apart from that, solely trout fishing. I had a little bit of a wobble in the 90s and went off and did some reservoir fishing, competition fishing, and reasonably successful. But I've now gravitated back to the rivers only. Although I do have one particular passion, which is on the west coast of Ireland, and I miss it dearly, which is Loch Corrib.
Yes, that can be very, very attractive, I must say. So the reason I'm having this introduction is that I haven't fished as many years as Bill. I'm a little bit younger, might I add, but I've been fishing West Amesbury I would say for over 20 years. So if you put Bill's and my experience combined, and if you think that we had the opportunities to be out on the water many more times than the average club member, the idea is to share some of our experiences, hoping that, one day you might experience the same fly hatches or the same spinnefoils. At least you know what it is about. So it's based on real experience. And with that, I'd just like to go back into the splash screen, which you saw as you were waiting, that it had an angler that was he asleep? I think it was.
I think it probably was.
Probably
Yeah.
was. So the splash screen tells a story about summer fishing. Summer fishing is difficult fishing. It's the dog days of summer. And as a general guidance, we can go through a few points that we see as very, very relevant, some general principles. The first thing to say is that enjoy the weather, please enjoy the weather, but keep your expectations low. As I said, it's very, very challenging. The water level is clear and it's low, particularly this time of year with high temperatures. So you need to be stealthier than usual. For wild fish, you need to be stealthy and off. But in summer, low water, clear water, you can't move. I remember when I fished the Bourne River, Bill, and it was July. And I asked you, I said, any words of wisdom? And you said, yes, one, do not move.
Do not move at all. No.
Yeah. So it's a case of let's have it as a
That's
dialogue.
what I would say. That's the point I always pick up and tell people, slow and steady. And if you're going slow and steady, you're probably going too fast. Like, I think I used to think it was Montgomery that said time spent in observation is never wasted, but I actually think it was wrong. And he used the words time spent in reconnaissance is never wasted. And that's such a truism for what we're doing out on the streams at the moment. I just don't move. I just stand and stare, and we look up our riverbanks, and there's seats, every few hundred yards. They're not, okay, you can rest your butt, for a while, but use them as, observation points. I spend a lot of time looking and very little time casting. And one of the best exponents of that, unfortunately, he's no longer with us, was Gordon Mackey,
Right.
old vice president. And Gordon's written a piece in our yearbook about approaching a chalk stream fishing. And that is so, so relevant to what we're
We
doing.
have tried to review it again and again and again, and we haven't changed.
No,
anything.
no need to change it. It's absolutely perfect. So if you haven't read it, I can't remember what page it's on now, but anyway, it's in the yearbook. Have a browse because it is very relevant.
So, question, okay, will you have many opportunities?
I think I have very few opportunities, but I make every opportunity count.
So that means will you cast
I'm
before?
very, very stealthy.
Okay.
With these fish now, we're 4 months into the season.
Mhm.
A lot of these fish have been caught maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
And we have to be a little bit sneaky. We have to be very careful in how we approach, what our cast is like. You've got to get it right first time. Otherwise, they're off and gone. And that brings us around to, sort of some of the tackle we're using. And, we're using long leaders now, or I'm using very long leaders. I try to use as long as possible, considering the weather conditions, whether we got wind or no wind or whatever.
What would you sort of recommend
Well,
as an average? Because the old adage is that the you match the size of the rod to the size of the leader, which is a 9 foot rod, 9 foot leader. But in summer, you need
I
to
wouldn't
go.
even start at 9 foot. And again, I would probably be on 14 foot or even longer than that. What I'm trying to do is, it's not that I want a long drift. I don't particularly like long drifts, but what I don't want to do is get the fly line as far away from the fish as possible. Um, not affiliated to any particular company, but I do rather like the new Varivas leaders.
Yeah, I hear they like them in Ireland as well.
They do. They like them everywhere. And I can't remember what they're called. The Pro Fly, is it? But 14. I start off with a 14. Oh, the 11 foot is the minimum one I start, but I put a tippet on that. I don't use any particular clever, tippet rings or anything like that. Just a straight surgeon's knot, and probably put a 3 foot tippet on that. But I do go up to use the 15 foot one on occasions, and put another 3 foot on the end of that as well. And it's all about, for me, getting the fly line away from the fish.
Yeah. And what about breaking strain, the tipper?
Well, unfortunately, I tend to be a little bit heavy with my lifting into fish, although I'm getting slightly better. Minimum, I would hope, minimum 6x, and I try to fish 7x on most occasions. But I say I have to keep telling myself I'm on 7x, I'm on 7x. Lift, don't strike.
Yes, yes, I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Do you think that's important to grease the end of your line and leader and decrease the tippet in summer?
I
particularly?
usually, yeah, I don't know. I always carry the sort of fuller's earth. I use it occasionally. I'm not convinced that it makes a lot of difference.
Right.
Not convinced. But I will very often grease using mucilin, the end of my fly line, and a little bit of the leader, because I want to lift in, as I said just a moment ago, lift into the fish, whereas if that end of my fly line, excuse me, is sinking a bit. What I do is I
Yeah.
pull the fly
Generally
down,
pull it
so I
down.
want to lift it all off cleanly off the
Yeah,
water.
yeah. So what are the areas that you'll be looking for fish in summer,
Well,
particularly now where the water level is low?
low,
Where they're likely
clear,
to be?
in the shade and deeper water. Fish haven't got eyelids. Put yourself in their position under the water, looking up at bright sunshine.
Yeah,
It's not,
yeah.
not a comfortable feeling. So margins, shaded margins, trees, under
And
the
I
trees,
suppose riffled water as well.
riffled water as well. But again, if you've got riffled water and shade, you're on a winner.
Yes.
Generally on the winner.
Yeah.
But again, if we move into times of day, and that's very important as well.
So we're having a few general principles and things like, enjoy the weather, but keep expectations low. Water is clear. You need to be stealthy or stealthier and locate fish. You study them to understand whether they're resting or they're looking for food before you cast. You will not have many opportunities. You minimize your movement and your casting. You look in shaded, deeper pools. Ideally,
Yeah, it's all very relevant. Can I bring one thing in that
yeah,
really does, practice your casting? I mean, I'm out with, I see so many people during the season, and in all honesty, casting for the majority of people is not great. I have a rod set up at home on my back wall of the house, and fortunately, I have a long garden. I will, if I'm not out fishing in a week, I will be practicing my casting techniques. And it's going back to this, you get so few opportunities at this time of year, you've got to make them count. So I want my fly to land exactly where I'm looking in front of that fish.
but
So, I think it's a really good thing for everybody to
and
practice their
you're
casting.
practicing after 60 plus years of fishing.
I still, I
Tell
still
the
do.
story.
I still do.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's made, at the moment it's accuracy. I want to be able to cast that fly to the exact spot.
yeah.
And the other big issue I see with people, and that, we're out and we've spotted a fish, and the first thing they do is they cast at the fish. Now, what I try to get them to do is, okay, we've spotted our fish. He's quite happy out there in between the ranunculus or on a little gravel run or whatever. Cast away from the fish. Make sure you've got your line length.
Yeah.
It's critical. The worst possible thing with these, so few opportunities. I see people pulling the line off the reel, whack it out, and the line will hit over the top of the fish, and that's the end of
Yeah.
that story.
I suppose the line we can extend it to say either the leader, if
Oh yeah,
the leader and even the tippet, particularly if they're very high underwater, in the case of spinnerful, and which literally they're like an inch or two below the water surface. Even the tippet is something that you have to bring down diagonally rather than lining
yeah. Again, cast across rather than straight
just
behind.
across.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, so these are the general principles, but typically, it would be good if we divide, let's say, the day in three major parts. I would say the
Yeah.
early morning session,
Yeah.
the rest of the day, and the evening session.
That'd be a good way to do it.
And then we can talk about the flies as well,
Mm.
because we'll sort of bring them in. So, what would you say? What's the early morning? So, when do we start in the morning in summer?
Many years ago, when I was really keen, I used to be out on first light, and especially in the weather we've had like this, I can remember quite a few occasions getting up at 4, being out on the river by 30:30. Similar to what we do when we're over in Ireland,
Yes.
but up early, and it's a lovely, lovely time of day. And then we're looking for spinners. That's what I find. From spinners from the hatch the night before, down the edges, in the riffles as well. What are we looking for? It'll be the BWO spinners from the night before. Have we got the slide there?
Yeah, I can share.
Can we have a look at some of the flies?
I can share the flies, and we can. I think they should be appearing now. There they are.
There we go. So, for the spinners, Lund's particular would be, these nearly all these flies here are pictures from the Fulling Mill catalogue. I'm very grateful to them. They've said we can use any of the flies in their catalogue.
Which one would you like anyone to focus in particular?
Well, the Lund's particular, a spinner pattern of some sort.
Which is
I'm
that
not
one
particularly
here,
saying it has to be a Lund's particular, but on so many occasions that I have been out, that's what that time of the morning, that's what's happening.
And would you say that the flattening F-fly, that would be also?
I use that as well, but what I do is I actually split the wings on that.
Okay.
So I think the F-fly is a really, really versatile fly. You can use it for hatching flies, and you can use it for spinners. Most F-flies are tied with probably 3 or 4 plumes of CDC, and you can split them out and form them into the shape of the spent wings of the spinner flies, the female spinners that have laid their eggs the night before. Small olives will probably be coming off as well as we move into daylight hours or more daylight hours.
Just checking to see. I suppose Adam's flies would be one, and I suppose a shuttlecock.
Most definitely
in a different
and
coloration.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
a
black one.
That's a black one.
Light olive ones.
Light olive. So you would say, so there will be returning spinners, and there will be some small. How small? Duns.
They're tiny. The duns will be down on 20s.
20s, 22s.
Yeah. Trouble with 22s, I have a bit of a problem with those.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Especially in not very good light. So
okay,
you've got to use what you can see.
But that's that is the morning. So summing up, you've got returning spinners from the night before. We're talking Lund's particular and the F-fly. By the way, whose are these flies? I know you created the slide.
I said they're from Fulling Mill.
From Fulling Mill.
All these images are from Fulling Mill. So very grateful.
And you're doing some work in trying to.
Yes, we're hopefully I'll be building a little match the hatch part of our website.
Okay, that's great.
And I will tie in with the river invertebrate flies that we've already got on the separate side.
Great.
Time permitting.
Of course. And I suppose this early morning, or the earliest you can get to the river, session will last until 9, 10 o'clock?
About 9, 10 o'clock. I mean, when I used to fish the rivers early, I would probably be heading off to work or something like that. So I get an early morning session in, quick cup of coffee, and then head off to work, whether it be in my previous corporate role or whether I was going out guiding to meet somebody else. So I could get in a couple of hours fishing before I actually met a client on the riverbank somewhere else.
Okay. And then we go, I suppose, is the rest of the day, meaning from 10 o'clock until whenever we start the evening session. It's fair to say that fish will be less active as the temperature rises?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, and especially these last few weeks. I know you're a great believer in taking water temperatures, and
Yes,
they were fairly high. What were they?
we reached where the sun is hitting directly our stretches where there's no weed and there's no shade. We hit 20 degrees.
Mm.
The good thing is that because of our effort to create more shade, be it with not cutting unnecessarily too much ranunculus and also having trees and bushes. That's one thing. Plus the fact that the aquifers have been releasing the water, which is at 10 to 11 degrees. It's really, really helped because we've seen temperature variation up to 4 degrees on the same day, which means that the fish have some escape, they can find these cooler places. But generally speaking, yeah, it is worrying. It is a new trend that we're seeing, and the climate experts are talking about warmer, wetter winters and drier summers, which is something that we're trying to understand. We haven't had to close the fisheries. No one has in our catchment. But if it was a spade river, it was, I mean, I know that the Wye and Askham in Wales and probably some rivers up north, they had to shut down fishing because you're reaching 20 degrees. It is lethal temperatures
And
for
how did
salmon.
our nadder do, being sort of slightly spate and quite low?
From my understanding from John, who's been equally taking temperatures in various spots, there's been the same effect, meaning that he's seen up to a 3 degrees difference between some parts of the Nadder and other parts. The Nadder has got the feature that it's got some very deep pools. That's the thing. It's more variable. The Avon and the Wiley, they seem to be more uniform in a way. So yeah, we've seen the same thing. Question is, what happens between now and the end of summer? It was welcome rain today, although it wasn't much. But these occasional topping up is very, very important.
One thing, with the water temperature, we have to be careful of, because the higher the temperature, the less dissolved oxygen it can hold, is the returning of fish.
Yeah.
On one or two occasions where I've been lucky enough to catch a fish over the last few weeks, it's taken me quite some time and nursing to get those fish back to, being reasonable to swim away. And I felt happy that they were going to survive. But it's something that we have to be very careful.
Particularly grayling, Bill.
And grayling, yes, most definitely grayling. It can be a bit tricky at the best of times.
Yes.
But yeah, so watch and be very careful on returning fish, I would say.
So going back to the opportunities, which there odd opportunities now throughout the day because fish they've had their breakfast and they'll probably be a little bit more relaxed about it. And what sort of
Well, I
things
think
have
we're
been
now
looking
sort of
for?
moving into the sort of terrestrial view. We're looking for.
You've got some imitations here. You can.
Yeah, the floating beetle is down there. I mean, that's done particularly well for me, not only this year, but last year as well. Had a lot of fish on that. And again, we're talking about, in the shade, and these beetles
Under a tree,
under a tree. Yeah, done really well for me.
Sizes?
From 14 down, right the way down. So some quite big ones. There've been a lot of older beetles around, again, over on the Nadder.
And would you say Kochi Bondi is also another fair imitation of a terrestrial?
Yes, it is. It's a fly that I don't use very often.
Yeah,
though.
no, I've used it. I've used that as well.
It wouldn't be a fly in the corner, or it might be in the corner of my fly box, but probably I wouldn't use. But there are a lot of good foam floating beetles around. Paul Proctor's got some really nice patterns. Again, that's one from Fulling Mill there. And the other thing we really could look forward to, if you're lucky enough to come across it, is an antfall.
I've had two of those.
I've had 6 to my
Okay.
knowledge.
Whereabouts?
2 at West Amesbury, um, one on the River Anton a few years ago. There was somewhere else. Certainly one at Chew Valley, but it's something to behold.
How does it work? What do members that haven't experienced are looking for?
Hopefully, lots of rising fish.
Oh,
I
there
don't
will
know.
be.
I don't know what the trigger is. Some people say is it formic acid that the ants give off, and that's a trigger
Potentially. I don't
potentially.
know.
But certainly, it's sometimes difficult to see what okay, what's going on here? You get lots of fish rising. You're looking down, you can't quite see it, and very often I'll get into the edge of the water and actually try and get as flat to the surface as possible. And you get down low, and then you see them. It's like a carpet. It's almost like velvet. So if you get a big fall.
It is. I mean, my experience twice in West Amesbury was that not much was happening. It was late afternoon. No, sorry, mid-afternoon. And then I started seeing like a black soup,
Mm.
but it wasn't black because I could see some white bits, and that was the reflection on the wings. And so I did exactly that. I got in the river and I sort of looked at it and I said, hold on, they're flying ants. Now I didn't have a flying imitation, and that's something that you shown there. But I had I remember I had a hawthorn, a small hawthorn. So I chopped the legs off, chopped the hackle off as much as I could, and thankfully, yeah, fish
I've done exactly the
responded.
same myself without,
Oh, you did?
yeah, exactly the same. But it's one of those flies that, again, you need tucked away in the corner of your fly box, um, because it can happen and it happens very quickly. I have a neighbor of mine that will probably come round if we're both at home for whatever reason. She'll come and say, the ants are out. I've been in the garden cutting the grass and there's ants all over the grass. So that's my sign to leave home and head to the river.
Right. So you've got the imitation. Now I was going to ask you, I know what a cow dung fly is because we've got plenty of cattle here, so I can see them sort of let's say, yeah, with their proboscis sort of.
Yeah.
But I don't know how it's.
Well, again, it's one of those flies that I have tucked away in the box because, over on Beat 2 where there's the cattle crossing,
Yes.
and you look around the edges of where the cattle crossing is, and there's a lot of cowpats.
Ah.
And again, if you look at, and right up to the water's edge, where those cows are in and out and crossing the river. And if you look carefully, or you don't have a look carefully, you can see there's a lot of dung flies.
So if there's a windy day, then
And they get pushed out onto the water. Again, I say, it's not going to be that common, but it's a useful fly to have in your box. It probably can double up as something else as well.
Um, the other thing is, what I've seen is, I mean, I was talking to a member. He popped in the office today. He was out early in the morning. It was 7 o'clock fishing West Amesbury, funny enough, and he said fish were actually on feeding. I said, well, what were they taking? He said midges.
Midges, most of it.
So I see you've got some imitations here. You can.
Yeah, so the Griffiths gnat has got to be a classic. Again, right down to size 22s for those smuts. I wouldn't say it's a banker, but very often without the upwing flies that we seem to be getting less and less of, unfortunately, the fish are still coming up and taking those little reed smuts.
Yeah.
And again, you've got to have a few, and they've got to be small. And again, you've got to fish them on a 7x tippet.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience because what I found out, reed smarts they've always been, yeah, here on chalk streams. This year I saw them a lot more. I mean, I put something on a forum about an experience that I've had fishing above the sleeper bridge. So there were the fish that rose that were taking something absolutely small, size. I mean, I went down to size 24, I believe. and made a really nice 2 pound wild fish. I was wondering, what on earth were you doing looking for the reed smuts? But that's exactly what was the food on the table. And this year, again, fishing the ask, it was very interesting because for similar reasons, like we're facing now, low water and reduced flows, the ask in early May, should be abandoned mayflies and brook darns and olives, etc. It was dominated by midges, and you had pods of fish just sipping on exclusively on midges. And of course, it was extremely difficult. And somebody would say, "Oh, why didn't you throw a big fly to them?" You think I didn't? Yes, you do 100 casts, and if you're lucky, a half-blind trout will take.
I had a similar experience on the 4th of June this year. It was a back end mayfly hatch going on.
Mhm.
And you look at it, oh, mayfly, yes, there's another one, there's another one, splash, splash. But there were more fish sipping than there were taking mayfly.
Right.
And they were sipping midges. Even when the mayfly were coming over the top of them,
Yeah.
they were preferring the midges.
Yeah.
Tell me why
So I suppose a black clink would work.
Black clink, one of my favourite flies, all-time favourite flies at the moment. Nice skinny black clink hammer. Again, the one I use is actually tied on a partridge clink hammer hook, and I think it's a size 18. But it's very effective, as I'm sure you can testify.
Yes, yes, I can. Absolutely. I mean, I members that pop in the office and they're asking me any chosen flies. I said, look, black clink, small. I think the slender one. I think that's the important thing. They don't seem to
No,
to like overdressed ones.
yeah, skinny body, even
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
thread. It does work a treat. Again, for me, it seems to work, in a lot of places. I wouldn't say it's a go-to, but it's pretty close.
And the other thing is that, and one of the things that sometimes I've experienced is aphids in summer. Now I know that one perhaps doesn't want to be pedantic and try to tie some greenish
Yeah.
small blobs. I found a Griffith's gnat, but extremely small, works. I don't know your experience, but on winter
Yes, it
days,
does. And I actually try to find a suitable photograph of a green fly,
okay.
and I couldn't. But it is a fly that does work. I say, down in the sizes that you need to be fishing, and we are sort of 22s and maybe even a little bit smaller than
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I have a lot of problems with that. Um, and
Yeah, you're honest.
it's not going to get any better, I'm afraid.
No. Hey,
Although every April I rush off to the opticians and have have my vision tested, and every year it's I need another prescription. But that usually lasts me the season. So
Yeah.
next April we'll be heading off again.
Adam's Parachute. Now I know that's I'd say an all-time classic, which, to be honest, it will work in summer. It will work in early
I
spring, and
I think it's one of those flies that I put in the same bracket as the pheasant tail nymph.
right.
It's a universal fly. Designed or made in the 1920s, I believe, by somebody called Halliday, for his best mate, who was called Adam.
All right.
But I've got Adams parachute Adams. I prefer. Of course, the original was traditionally wound hackle. But I've got parachute Adams from 20s to 12s. But I wouldn't be using the 12s now. I'd be using the 12s and maybe even a 10 during a mayfly.
To a mayfly.
Yeah.
And would you put the iron blue in the same category as a fly?
I wouldn't. Harry Plunkett Green might.
Right.
Um,
Because it does work on the bone
it
rivulets.
does, yeah. All right. If you read Where the Bright Waters Meet, I think he's quite a firm favourite of the iron blue. Although for some people, it is, it does fit in that same bracket.
I know we've got somebody on the
Um,
forum by the name Iron
yeah.
Blue, for example.
But each to their own. And I'm not saying this is a definitive list. This
No.
is just a general list.
No.
If somebody hasn't fished the early or the mid-season before, then with this list, I think we had a little chat about it beforehand. I think this list could cover most situations.
It would. And the other thing is, just to your point, that it's all about confidence because you use the black clean cameras and I use the black clean cameras, and we're both very successful. And I had this conversation with members that they say, I never managed to catch fish with a clean camera. Why is that? It's not working for me. But again, is the confidence builder of using a particular fly.
And yeah, that does go a long way of having confidence, because the original clean camera was designed as a caddis emerger.
Right.
Sounds
Okay.
Clinton.
Yeah,
that's what it was designed for. But of course, we've adapted it in so many ways.
So now I'm gonna move you into the area of nymphing. Now, and can you please tell us what's the difference between the traditional nymph fishing, which has been starting in chalk streams on the 1st of July, compared to some of the modern techniques of high sticking and urine nymphing and check nymphing, this, that, and the other.
You're out of my comfort zone there, Andreas. Right out of my comfort zone. I enjoy nymphing. I enjoy nymphing when I can see the fish. What I dislike intensely is people random fishing nymph. I call it upstream wet fly, because that's what it is. And I think it can, especially somewhere like Amesbury, where you have wading, and if somebody works up from, say, the bottom top, casting with a nymph, every likely looking spot, sure enough, they'll catch fish.
Yes.
But they'll spoil it for anybody that's coming behind.
Agreed.
I don't think that if you're fishing a dry fly in that, I'll pop it there, I'll pop it here. I don't think that disturbs the fish so much, but putting a nymph through the lies, I think it'll ruin it for anybody coming behind you for a good few hours at least. So I wouldn't do it. If I'm nymph fishing, I like to target specific fish. So we're back right away to the start almost. Observation.
Yes.
Standing still, watching, looking at that little gravel patch over the far side that looks, it's quite clear gravel. Maybe a fish has been lying on that, and the action of its tail is just.
So that's the thing. So you study to see if the fish is resting.
Yeah.
And or whether he's looking for food.
Or whether, yeah. And you need to take your time. You can't say, oh, what's that fish doing? Oh, bang. No, I've spooked it. So hopefully you'll see that fish moving from side to side. And again, this is why I have my new set of glasses every year. Move them side to side, and hopefully you can just see that little wink of the white of the mouth as it is taking nymphs.
Yes.
So then what you've got to do, you've got to think, right, okay, how far, if I'm tend to use standard pheasant tail nymphs in this lower water. So unweighted. When I say unweighted, they've just got the,
Yeah, they've got the wire in there, yeah.
Copper wire.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got to see your fish. You've got to think, right, okay, how deep is that fish? Okay. Then you've got to think, right, okay, how heavy is my nymph? How far have I got to cast upstream of that fish to get the fly down to its level?
Yeah.
Now, I was really lucky that in my early teens, the River Authority bailiff round here that rather took me under its wing introduced me to Frank Sawyer.
All right.
And I had some wonderful lessons on nymph fishing with Frank Sawyer. Invaluable fishing lessons with Frank Sawyer.
With a split cane rod, I'm guessing.
He had a split cane rod. I had a split cane rod, and I've still got my split cane rod, which lives in a case in the back of the garage. But anyway, that's another story. It's lovely. And I have to thank my father for buying it for me for my 21st birthday. But anyway, there we are. So see how deep your fish is, how heavy a nymph you're using. Get that nymph upstream of the fish. Now, very often I'll maybe cast it a little bit short and see if that fish will come up to take that fly or move up through the water column. If that doesn't work, I'll try and get the nymph a long way upstream to allow it to get down below the fish. Okay, and then keeping that tight line, retrieving all the time as it comes back towards me, just raise that little rod tip slightly.
Yeah, induced.
And get that induced take. And that can be really effective. Really effective. In deeper water, of course, you know, we're moving on. On
the gold bead one
on the fly list. Yeah, I've got a gold bead. I do use that occasionally. You know, I need to get down, and you know, some deeper, faster water. I'm not averse to using something as heavy as that. But again, I think at the moment, over the last few years, my most successful nymph on our waters and others has been the black buzzer.
Yeah, talk to me about the black buzzer because you gave me some and they do work.
They do, yeah. And it's something I discovered again quite a few years ago, sort of by chance, because I've been through the box, you know, and tried lots of different nymphs. It was on the Bourne Rivulet again. We go back to the Bourne Rivulet, and getting a bit frustrated. And I just happen to have a box of buzzers that I've probably been using a week before on one of the still waters. And, you know, I'll put that on black buzzer. Very similar to that in actual fact, just black thread and a thorax built up of black thread as well, a little bit of varnish over the top, and boom. And it's sort of become a staple for me. And I think maybe it's because of, again, we were talking earlier, maybe our lack of upwind flies and our slightly slower water. We're seeing more and more chironomids appear on our waters, whereas I think maybe if I went back 20 or 30 years ago, we didn't have a great deal of chironomids.
Yeah.
But it certainly is an effective pattern for me.
I suppose nearer to sewage water treatment plant.
Oh yeah.
They might be quite effective. Yeah, it's one of these things. So I suppose, I mean, I see Daddy there. That will
again, you know, maybe not so much now, although there are, you know, you seem to get daddies throughout the year now.
Yeah.
But I think as we move later into the month, later into the back end of August and into September, we get quite a few more blowing off the fields and onto the water. It does work very well floating. It also sometimes it's successful if it sinks. But of course, I wouldn't be using a beadhead daddy on our waters.
So, summing it up, then, if rest of the day, fish are less active, temperature rises, they don't like the sun, the fish will be possibly pegged on the bottom in a resting position. Only the odd opportunistic rises on terrestrials. We talked about beetles, aphids, plus reed mats and spinners. You're looking for fish in shaded areas and holes in the weed. Try small nymphs to induce a take if you can see them. Small sizes, definitely 18s to 24, 22s, if not smaller. And and that brings us then to the evening session, which will start when?
Again, I think it depends on the weather we're having, but
7-ish,
you're looking at 7:30, something like that, and right the way through till dark.
So what is there a particular order, what we're expecting to say? I mean, I've noticed a pattern when you get there at...
Usually you'll see, you know, again, my experience, and I think you and I have been fishing on the odd occasion, and we've experienced something similar, that you start to see the little dimples.
The little dimples, yeah.
The little dimples.
Grayling or trout?
No, the little dimples are probably minnows.
Minnows, yes. Yeah, no, you're right. And tiny grayling.
And tiny grayling. And it's usually the grayling that sort of switch on to anything that's on the table.
Absolutely.
You know, to start with on the hatch. And then, with luck, we'll get some olives coming off.
Yes, as it's getting
Again,
cooler.
as it gets cooler.
Sedges as well.
Few
Some small
sedges
sedges.
probably a little bit later on as we get in later into the evening.
Yeah.
And again, I'll put a couple of patterns up there. CDC and Alp really did, a lot of fish were caught over that
Fantastic fly.
pattern. Probably over the last 15, 20 years, I would say a lot of fish. It's been a very successful fly.
Yeah.
For those that do tie flies, it's a very easy fly
Very
to tie
good.
as well.
Yeah.
And then you move into the slightly bigger sedges that we do occasionally still get, cinnamon sedge and
The caperer and the big red.
And the big red. So yeah, and they're right towards the end, and normally we'd be thinking that we want our fly to drift as naturally as possible. Well, sometimes with a sedge, if we can put a little bit of movement into it. I'm not saying strip it back across the surface.
No, particularly not downstream.
No. But a little bit of movement, again, by occasionally racing the rod tip or something, just to give it a bit of life. And it probably, if you do get a take, it's probably going to be one of the better fish as well in the section.
Yeah, I found out that if you throw in a sedge speculatively just before the light is lost in some likely spots, you might have a really good surprise, but a big fish.
I would agree with that.
Last minute.
I would agree with that.
And equally, the ultimate sedge and the CDC and Algor's CDC or the Cadiz, traditional CDC Cadiz with the alcohol, they will work. But I suppose the main target, the main objective of the evening session is spinners.
It's spinners.
Blowing olives,
small olives,
and small olives. Now, what I've again observation, and I'm so sad that I keep a diary so I can trace back many events over the years. What I tend to see typically is that you would see spinners flying upstream.
Definitely, yeah.
From about 8 o'clock onwards. Then by about 8:45, they'll be dancing up and down in columns, particularly in areas there are some well-defined spinnerful places where the boys meet girls, if I can put it that way. And they're typically near bridges, near
places and riffled water.
Riffle water, because they want to drop their eggs there. And the actual dance and the first egg laying would be from 9 o'clock. So fish will start rising.
Yeah, I've never been as sort of specific as that, but maybe, with your diaries you can be. But, it's as the evening progresses. And again, observation is the key to what is happening. Yeah. So, I don't think I'd say, 9 o'clock, this is going to happen.
No.
9:30, that is going to happen.
The thing is, have you seen, what I've noticed is that it's more irregular the last few years. So, this year, for example, I remember I went to fish West Salisbury and I was above Allenby Bridge. Yes, I saw the spinners, a good swarm of spinners, but they appeared and they started dancing at 9:20. So it was too late for me to, which goes into the egg laying process. Perhaps it does happen sometimes during the night.
Now that brings us on to something sort of interesting. Now, a few years ago, a friend of mine who fishes worldwide was telling me about a lot of the upwind flies in Normandy.
Right.
Now seem to be hatching at night. Now, another friend of mine who does a lot of weed cutting and leaves himself, but it gets very busy and very often does it at night in the pitch black. He wears this head torch business, he's been telling me also that there's an awful lot of upwind flies hatching after dark, right after dark. So, 10, 11, 12 o'clock. Now, that's okay. And that almost sort of brings us full circle back to our spinners first light in the
In
morning.
the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't been out. Maybe we should go out. Maybe we should go to the pub, Andres. Have a
Yes.
couple of pints
And then put
and then head to the river.
the world's torch, the miner's torch.
And we might get arrested.
No, no, that's brilliant. I think we have exhausted what we needed to say. I think we've given a good bash in terms of general principles, times of day, fly selection. So I think I'll pass it on to members. unless you want to-
Just say one thing. That the fly selection there'll be we'll turn that into a little PDF. So on the forum there'll be a link to download. Not only we'll put this up on the forum,
Okay.
but there'll be a link to download
Right.
the suggestions that we've made this evening on flies, sizes, and what have you. Because on our little chart of flies, we didn't put any sizes. I didn't put any sizes on there. But
Yes.
but the
Yes.
the download PDF will have all
Yes,
of that
yes,
with suggested sizes. Now, the other thing that's just occurred to me while I'm sitting here, that if anybody can remember the Muppet Show many years
I do.
ago, there were two old buggers that used to sit on the balcony.
No.
Called
No.
Waldorf.
Which one are you? Which one is
Well,
it?
looking at the screen, it sort of reminds me of that. But anyway, I think on that we'll conclude our little bit.
I think now it's time to pass it on to members for their questions. I see we've got a very healthy number of members participating, 70 members so far. So I'm sure we might get some questions. I see two already, but in the meantime, please ask your questions, use the Q&A button, and then we'll do our best to respond. Michael Short, he's given us a good summary of a detailed breakdown of general timing. Flying out day typically falls within the warmer months, primarily July and August, but the specific dates can vary. That's true. 2025 predictions. Many sources suggest that 2025 will see peak flying and activity in the later half of July, with the period between 22nd and 27th being particularly highlighted.
Maybe we've missed it.
Well, maybe we've missed it. And local variations, the specific day or days when flying and swarm can differ across the UK, influenced by local weather patterns. And the factors influencing timing, temperature above 25 degrees and humidity are key. Factors in triggering swarming, with low wind and the potential for rain also playing a role. Not just one day. It's important to remember that Flying Ants Day isn't a single day, but a period of heightened activity that can last for several days or even weeks, with smaller swarms happening on other warm, calm days.
Very informative.
Very informative.
Thank you, Michael.
Keith Johnson, he says, thank you, gentlemen. There is an anonymous attendee. He says, what is the ideal line, leader, and tippet for nymph fishing? You are the expert. Ideal
line. Well, the obvious answer is one that matches your rod. And I see so many people that turn up with unmatched kit. But again, I think start at the other end with your fly. So how heavy is your fly? Match that to your tippet strength to start with, and then I'll go back and say as long a leader as you can handle.
Yes.
I don't think it matters about your line so much as long as you can present that nymph delicately and accurately. I don't think it makes any scrap of difference about the color of your fly line at all. As long as you can keep that fly line away from your target fish. I'll give you a quick example here, if I can. Now, I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, they should be able to see that.
Now, that is a demo Rio line. Okay, and I use it for sort
Very,
of doing
very
bulk
colourful.
ones. It is, it's nice and bright, isn't it? But I am happy to use that line in any of my chalk stream fishing situations.
Particularly during the evening hours that you can see it.
But I know there's a lot of controversy over fly line colours.
No.
And I wouldn't put that on. But if I had it like I have it in my bag at the moment,
Yeah.
I'm very happy to use that as long as I can, it works the rod that I'm using at that particular time.
I agree. Another question from that's from Ian Tradeaway. How far from the fly do you grease the line? So I suppose fly
Okay.
line and
How far from the fly do I grease
Yeah.
the line? Do you mean the fly line or the leader?
well, I think you can describe the whole thing.
If it's the fly line, maybe just a couple of feet from the end.
Couple of feet from the end, yeah.
And again, it depends on the depth that I want that fly to go down. So if I greased it up within 6 inches, then that fly is not going to go much below 6 inches. So again, observation, how deep do I think my fish is? And go from that point. If I've been fishing for a fish that was fairly shallow and I'd greased up my leader to say a couple of feet and then moved up the river and found one that's fishing much deeper, that's when the fuller's earth comes into play.
So in the context of, let's say, dry fly, that I think that's possible because I mean there's there's the nymphing element which you want obviously to have it floating, and then but there's a dry fly where you don't want it to go under when you when you cast. I mean,
we're working in imperial. I would say 3 foot.
about 3 foot.
About 3 foot.
And do you think there's any difference? Because I know the opinion is divided between fluorocarbon and copolymer or nylon for the tippet. Do you think it makes a big difference?
I tend to use copolymer nearly all the time. I have used fluoro. For me, I don't think it makes any difference.
So I use nylon. I'm quite happy with nylon.
Nylon. Yeah, I don't think it makes any difference. I don't think all this, you've got to get your leaders sinking and all this.
Yeah.
I think Peter Hayes is now sort of gone on. It doesn't really make a lot of difference, isn't it? I'm not 100% sure.
I think so, although he was probably against the fluorocarbon to start with in his original publications. So we got a question for Peter Usherwood. I think you're the best one to answer that. What do you think about using a furled leader as opposed to a tapered one? I've used these 5 or 7 foot furled leaders plus a tippet, and it seems to work. Clear ones, of course.
I don't like them. Again, it's a personal choice. One of the small streams I fish is very, very clear. And on occasions, as I push the fly forward, I've got a spray of the leader.
You do.
And I've seen that spook fish. Now, I don't know. But, my experience of them, as I push forward, I get this, spray and then a rainbow forms.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
I have used them. I'm very happy. I say I've got no affiliation to Fishing Matters.
No.
But those are the leaders that I use.
There's the pro dry ones, I
pro
use
dry and that. But
I use
but I say no affiliation. Each to their own. If it works for you,
no, that's fine. The thing which I found with the fur leaders, and I've tried a couple, is that they're very supple. So what I found out is that the let's say you could get away with a 7 foot fur leader plus say 2 or 3 foot of tippet, only because being a supple material, it was kind of breaking the current, and it wasn't as stiff as a tapered leader. But in terms of presentation, there is no way that you can have the presentation of a tapered leader, which is well balanced like this Pro Dry, in terms of the way you want it, particularly in summer, which you need to be very, very tactical and technical in your fishing.
I agree. You just mentioned, if you land your leader too straight, I think you can get drag.
Oh yeah.
So what I would do, I was actually put in slack, deliberately put in slack.
That's right. You stop it there.
Yeah, stop it dead. So I'm getting slack in the line or slack in the leader. So hopefully the currents will move the fly, but not drag it.
Yeah. So the next one is from Jim Sharkey, an observation rather than a question. Shop bought black ants and often larger than the real things. My fly was ignored on the Avon near Uphaven, and a change to a tiny black F-fly saved the day. Well done. The size and color of the F-fly trumped the shape of the overall large imitative fly.
Well, don't buy from that shop again.
Yeah.
Recommendation.
Yeah. So, Ian, thank you, gentlemen. And another one, thank you for these webinars. They've all been very informative. I think we don't have any more questions. I just want to thank you all for participating, for your questions. And I believe that the recording will be shortly
Very shortly
on the forum.
Hopefully by the weekend.
Yeah, and it is worth continuing. I just feel we had a good attendance today, and these are, we hope useful webinars, because typically, I suppose somebody could be charging money. I mean, guys could be charging money.
It's sort of interesting experience for me. When Andreas sort of said, would I come along and do it? I almost felt like it was a job interview.
That's me.
Yes, but
you passed.
Yeah, we're here to help, and that's if anybody has a suggestion for another webinar type chat, whatever it might be, then I'm sure we can sort of put something together.
Yeah, great.
Anyway, thank you everybody for joining us.
Thank you very much, and have a good evening all. And tight lines.